Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Equine Episode Examination for this week, where today we'll be talking about the second episode that premiered this past Saturday, All Bottled Up. So, hopefully you were able to watch yesterday's episode, and today we'll be talking about the that second one then. So if this is your first time joining us, we're just going to pretty much talk about said new episode and give our opinions on it, what we thought of it, and etc., starting with more general stuff, going to more specific stuff. So we do record this live at CinemaQuestria.com, so if you want to get in on the chat, we usually do this every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It's a special Wednesday episode. So if you want to join in the chat, you have to go there, and you can come participate in the discussion, give your opinions on the episode, and we'll have a nice big discussion with everyone. So we have a few people here in the call with me today discussing this. I'm Rain Shadow.
Hey, I'm everyone. It's Mr. Ben.
This is Jay Smith.
I'm Teacup.
Matt, yay! Matt's actually able to be here today. Yay!
Yeah, I'm feeling better.
He had a lot of tea from his teacup.
Well, it was just all these teacups just kept raining down on me.
That sounds painful.
I blame Trixie.
Yeah,
she transformed every single statue to make it rain down.
That's the easiest thing to do there is to blame Trixie. So anyway, yeah, today we're going to be discussing Bottled Up, as we discussed yesterday. We're going to be discussing the nut cart.
We will be
the nut cart
these
today.
Nuts.
We need to replace the entire opening theme song with "It's the Nut Cart." But yeah, going off what we said tomorrow, obviously this is kind of a different kind of opener for a season, with it not being a two-parter, with it being more of a two separate sort of connected episodes in some topics, but since they are far enough apart in terms of what they actually discuss in those episodes, we decided to talk about them as two separate episodes of Triple E. So that's why we're having this second episode today to discuss All Bottled Up here. So without further ado, we do have some stuff to discuss here, so let's get into it. What is everyone's initial thoughts on All Bottled Up?
Trixie's a dick, but she's a lovable dick.
Much like Discord, right?
Yeah. To be fair, yeah. She's basically becoming like a bit like Discord in that sense, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It's like Starlight's group is like the Dick Squad. Like most of them have been or are dicks in some way.
Yeah. I don't know about Thorax. So
well, that's why I said most of them. That's why I said most of them.
Yeah.
He is the exception to the other three.
I don't know.
He's the
Thorax
exception to
kind of
the
did
rule.
have a minor moment against Spike, but again, that's more of a minor moment than anything else.
To be fair, he was being a dick to Luna without even trying. Like you try get this round around my antlers, bitch. Okay, that came out totally wrong.
For me, I enjoyed this episode. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Celestial Advice, just because of all of the crazy like backstory and everything we talked about yesterday regarding that episode. But it was a really nice episode between Starlight and Trixie, and really kind of helped grow and feature their friendship more, because we haven't really seen them together since their sort of initial episode last season with where they were both sort of first became friends in that episode. And it was a great episode to kind of build upon that and kind of feature some of their the issues that they're still having. And it was just kind of a really fun, enjoyable romp for them as well. I mean, first, I just really enjoyed it. I loved seeing both of them. I'm glad we got another episode with both of them, just them pretty much. And I'm happy we got it so soon.
Say, I'll be a little bit more serious in what I've actually so I'll do a little bit more critiquing. Absolutely love the interactions between Starlight and Trixie. Couldn't really care less for the B plot involving the main six, to be brutally honest, because it didn't really amount to all that much. I mean, it was nice to see them, the main six sort of, interact with each other, and that's great. But they kind of left Spike behind, which I'm a little miffed about. But also, we didn't really see Spike do anything in the episode otherwise, so he was kind of there for no real reason. That's not an issue against the episode itself, just an observation I sort of made. As for the actual song, it's nice, but again, like the whole of the B plot, was it really necessary? I mean,
yes.
Don't get me wrong, it was enjoyable to watch, and it's a nice song, but...
It is. I've seen a lot of people complain about this, so I'll kind of get it right off the bat.
I mean,
the B plot and the song itself are very integral to the episode. The whole point of the B plot, let me finish. The whole point of the B plot and the song are to provide sort of a juxtaposition of Trixie's and Starlight's kind of new young friendship with the main six's very veteran old friendship. It's supposed to provide sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's
a contrast.
A contrast. Thank you. Yeah, a contrast between those two, and showing how the main six interact, how they work together, and how they communicate with each other very, very well. Which goes what the song goes into, and all their small little B plot things, and even of course the whole thing with them being in an escape room, which requires very good teamwork, and them doing so well at it. That was the point of the B-plot, and it's to contrast with Starlight and Trixie really struggling because their friendship is so new, and they don't have that communication, and of course Starlight's so worried about sabotaging that friendship they have as well, because it's so new, and they aren't sure what each other's boundaries are, which each other's limits are, and they don't have that open communication. And that's the point of the B-plot and the point of the song in there.
Do we need? Yes, but to be fair, we know this from other episodes, though, from around this time. Do we really need it in this episode?
Yes.
I'm not. I feel like it seems a bit overbearing to the audience to say, "Hey, look, the main six are really close friends after all this time." I was like, well, no shit, it's been all this time.
I mean, but it's supposed to show it directly in this episode, so you can compare and contrast direct things. And that's one of the things I like about the writing in this episode, is because the dialogue flows directly before each of them very...
Yeah, okay, if you've never seen the show before, or if you've only seen a limited amount of episodes, then yes, it makes more sense. And I suppose in the sense of that regard, yeah, I suppose you could say it's more necessary.
And it's also, because you have to really listen to the dialogue and how both of those things play into each other, how the dialogue transitions with the same exact words or phrases similarly from the B plot to the A plot, and just allows that to go back and forth. A lot of these scenes are very relate to each other and kind of and play off of each other from the A and the B plot as well. So it helps keep, it just helps keep that, contrast going between the two, and you can really see and focus on where Starlight and Trixie are struggling in their friendship.
Plus, Matt, you never know if this could end up being somebody's first episode, believe it or not. So that kind of helps establish it if a newcomer was coming in to keep the episode self-contained.
But the thing is, the previous episode, Celestial Advice, that's not a self-contained episode. To get what was going on in that episode, you're going to need to have watched previous episodes. So
that's right.
If you're going to do that with every episode of the show, you're going to come a cropper at some point. And, don't get me wrong.
But that's not the point. The point here is to provide that direct contrast. Yes, we know, but here we can actually see it visually. It helps. The episode is showing us visually, not just saying, oh, I hope they understand. Showing us visually this difference between the two friendships. Exactly. Not just trying to hope that we understand, or hope that the viewer has the knowledge, or hope that the viewer is getting sort of where they're struggling, or what the contrast is between the two friendships.
So you're basically saying the audience need to be shown and have it hammered into their heads because they're idiots.
I think showing.
Well, think of it this
No,
way.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I think showing things is a lot better than just assuming that someone knows. I think showing
Think of it
things
this-
or understands.
Think of it this way. What if someone has never seen the show before? What if this is their very first episode that they've ever seen? And they have no knowledge whatsoever of the show prior to going into this. If this is their first episode, this might help to provide a bit of a contrast of like, hey, these, Twilight and her friends are probably a good group, but, Starlight and Trixie might not be so much. That's pretty much something that I could think of a good point of why they did this.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I get what Matt's saying here, and that a lot of us do kind of know how good friendships are. But I can see what the episode's trying to do, and I really kind of appreciate what they're doing in terms of offering that direct contrast in the episode to really give us that solid idea of what the differences between these two kind of veteran and new friendships are, and more importantly, showing like viewers, showing kids or adults, whoever's watching, sort of, where you could struggle with a new friendship and how that can develop over time into this other friendship, veteran friendship where everyone has this understanding, is able to work together without even, with good communication, and even to the point where they're doing stuff, they know they can play with each other and they know exactly what each other, is going to do and how they're going to, work in that situation that we see, when they're solving the puzzle in that versus, Starlight struggling just to communicate with Trixie about her feelings and her anger because she's afraid how Trixie's going to react to it. Moving on from all of that point, though, this episode, much like the first one, and much like most two-parters, even though this isn't a two-parter, was also written by Joanne and Christine Sonko, Joanne Lewis and Christine Sonko, I guess I should say. And it was, of course, they are the new story editors for this season as well. So sort of like a two-parter where they did write both of the opening episodes, even though they're sort of not a part one and part two. Now that we've kind of talked about the previous one, we can kind of touch on how they're sort of related, because even though it's not a continuous story, there's a lot of continuity and relatability to both of these episodes, with all bottled up here pretty much being the first episode after Starlight has sort of graduated from Twilight's mentorship there. And it's kind of a direct continuation of there, and Twilight even kind of references it at the end, saying that you've barely graduated and you're already taking initiative to solve problems and stuff like that. So there's a lot of short continuity between them, even if they aren't the same exact story and they more stand on their own, which was nice to have. I really did like how they kind of worked an actual like escape room into it. That's kind of like grown a lot more popular in recent years, that kind of thing in real life. So it's kind of funny to see that in the show.
My family actually went to go have an escape room, not just like within the past month, and I felt kind of miffed because they didn't even invite me along. But I really wanted to do like one of those escape room things. I've been wanting to do those for some time, and then I found out like two of my aunts and like three of my cousins went that, and like, you didn't think to invite me? Well, fine. See if I come to any of your barbecues again.
Was I the only one that was slightly disappointed that they didn't make it Daring Do themed, or or even AK Yearling owned?
Yeah.
It kind of looked like it almost was Daring Do themed, but yeah, it was never explicitly stated that it was for it. It really should have been. See, I don't know. I used to do go to like big like corn mazes with my family and do that when I was little. Those were hard enough to do on their own. I don't know if I'd ever be able to do one of these and have the cooperation necessary and knowledge necessary to do one of these escape rooms. One interesting thing that I noted when watching this is it seems like Starlight has so much sort of magical energy that it can cause issues if she doesn't expel it, because we kind of see that with her rage sort of building up inside, and with her not like actively using her magic as much or controlling ponies and the town. It starts to almost manifest itself in this in this red cloud above her horn when she gets really angry, which is interesting just from a
I think it's a
character
it's a
perspective.
key difference between her and Twilight.
Mhm.
Whereas Twilight's magic, I think, is based around her friendships and not necessarily, and obviously a lot more sort of she's a lot more methodical with her magic, I would say. But sometimes when stress gets involved is when obviously by stress I mean academic stress, or stress in terms of her studies, or trying to please Celestia, for example. That's when things start to go haywire for Twilight. I think Starlight is a lot more emotionally driven when it comes to her magic, and obviously that ties in quite a lot with obviously sort of how she sort of acted sort of prior to her reformation in season 5, for example. And I think that actually makes a good little contrast with Twilight in that regard, and I'd like to see that sort of delved into a little bit more, perhaps.
Yeah.
I really like the idea that the implication that magic being an imagination-based power is a rather good idea, since that actually rather justifies many of the moments where they seem to kind of forget about their issues. Because regardless of how powerful you are, in regard to your magic, your actual power is just useless without your proper focus, which may be often broken by mental preoccupations, or if you're in the heat of the moment, so on and so forth.
And of course that kind of leads us to Starlight literally bottling up her anger. I mean, can't get much more, it reminds me of the JonTron subtlety video. Can't get much more literal than that there. And of course here, this is another episode where we kind of see one of Starlight's sort of faults in terms of her pretty much trying to use magic to solve all of her issues, and it kind of goes like she's using magic in order to not use magic, as she mentions. And of course
that sounds like Twilight logic in a pinch. To be fair,
and this is even sort of lampshaded then at the end of the episode when Trixie's is like, haven't you learned anything about not using magic to solve all your problems? And Trixie's like, well, Starlight, if we learned that lesson, then we wouldn't have any fun. Which was a great line.
I'm honestly beginning to wonder whether Trixie is just a pony proxy for Discord.
Yeah, she can, she's not so much chaotic, but she can really kind of have that dickish attitude sometimes. This episode, much like Joanne and Christine's writing in Celestial Advice, still had a good amount of continuity. It wasn't quite as much of a continuity fest as Celestial Advice was, but it had a lot of good continuity between both this and the last episode, between this and Starlight and Trixie's previous episodes. I mean, we get to see, they reference, Trixie and Starlight meeting at the spa, last season. And of course, like continuity with bulk biceps, working at the spa as well. You know, I wear many hats. and stuff like that. So it still had a nice bit of, you know, continuity flow, even if it wasn't as, you know, continuity heavy or required, you know, not quite as much about continuity as the last episode did.
Hey, Rain. If we get an episode with bulk biceps and it's in his house and it's obviously when he's wearing a certain one of his hats, would it be called the Nut Chat?
God. Oh no. The master of disguise. Well, here.
How can he be the master of disguise with fucking biceps like he's got?
Now I want to hear bulk biceps say turtle.
No, I just want to see bulk biceps trying to disguise himself as Fluttershy. That'd be fucking hilarious.
But he hates butterflies. I did really like the resolution of the episode and the how it really strengthened our view of the friendship between Trixie and Starlight. It really, I mean, the whole episode's kind of it's focused a lot on Starlight's anger. It's a lot of comedy and stuff in it, but the ending is really emotional as you know, after Starlight vents finally all of her frustrations to Trixie. And they both kind of, you know, forgive each other there. And it just really allows us to see how much the two characters have really grown close, you know, as friends to each other. When in their first episode, a lot of it was just Trixie trying to get back at Twilight and sort of inadvertently found that she and Starlight can actually get along really well. So it's nice after all they went through last season and to just see their friendship together, you know, really develop one-on-one, because I mean, it's not something we really see a lot I in this series in terms of like a one-on-one friendship developing like that, because really with the main six, it's a, you know, a big group of six of them, and we've watched all six of their friendships blossom to, you know, together. And every once in a while in later seasons we get a you know, an episode with two of them, but by that time they were already pretty good friends. So it's really nice in this series to see just kind of like a one-on-one friendship kind of grow between two ponies, because we haven't really seen that before.
The closest I can think of is Look Before You Sleep, but that was more a freeway kind of thing. So obviously you had Twilight there, but it was mostly.
I'm sorry, it was more a three-way. Okay.
But, you know what I mean? There was three characters in the episode.
Yes, I know. In the sleepover. I need to get my mind out of the gutter. But yeah, you're right.
I'll try and carry on. But yeah, it was whilst Twilight was there, a lot of the focus was on the relationship between Rarity and Applejack. So it's not like the show's never done it before, but perhaps this explicitly, yeah. I mean, it's probably the first time it's probably been done in a while.
And plus, they were already sort of... we saw them growing closer together, but they were already pretty much friends by that point as well. So it's definitely going a lot farther in this situation, yeah.
Well, to be fair, Trixie and Starlight considered, you know, I would say they considered themselves friends last season, so...
But I mean, that's kind of my point. But I'm not really talking about just this episode either. I'm talking about between like their introduction last season and through last season and including this episode, seeing that friendship sort of, you know, blossom from nothing there. Not just this episode. Yeah. And I know we kind of already touched on this, and we won't kind of go back to it. But one of the other notes I just had is just kind of I did really like the very deliberate writing in this between the two kind of the A and the B plot in the episode, because when you actually watch it, it's really enjoyable just to see like the dialogue between the two kind of scenes as it cuts between them, very deliberately related as it goes back between them, like at the closer to the end where we see like Rainbow Dash or someone like says nuts, and it cuts back to Bulk Biceps throwing the nut cart at Trixie and just like nuts, and that kind of happened throughout the episode. It was kind of, I don't know, at least for me, it was kind of an enjoyable little writing quip that they put in there between all the scenes.
Hey, Rain Shadow, would you say it was a ballsy move?
This episode had a lot of nuts. It was a little nuts.
Little wiener and some tiny nuts.
Oh, that movie.
Episode at Starlight going nuts.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of adorable writing between Starlight and Trixie throughout here as well.
I do, as much as I've sort of wailed on the B plot, I do love how they do the lampshading of the saying, I bet there's going to be a song involved, and guess what? There was a song involved.
There's a song involved, yeah.
I love that little point, self-referential humor on that.
Yeah.
I still think it was done slightly better with Dave Polsky's episode made in Rarity Takes Manhattan. I think that's probably the best use of lampshade, and I think I've seen the show used so far. Before Rarity's song, Generosity, just Rainbow Dash's line before that was just hilarious.
There's a lot of nuts in the chat. Is there anything else story or writing wise that anyone wants to point out before we get to go and dive into the character discussion?
Who knew that Granny Smith had a dark side?
I didn't know you had a dark side, dark past, Granny Smith. There was a lot of really good writing.
Perhaps Rain is right about the Apple Mafia.
Canon. Gosh, now I have to find I already got one of M.A. Larson. I got one of Haber. Now I need to find one of Joanne and Christine and to put the canon caption under it.
Wait, there's a Haber one?
I made a Haber one.
Oh, God.
Now I'm gonna have to make another one.
You need a Megan McCarthy one as well for the movie.
She doesn't use cannons. She uses like nuclear bombs. But yeah, I think the episode overall was really well written. It had a lot of very funny. It had a lot of good emotional writing and a lot of good character building writing. It had a lot of really funny lines and moments throughout it to keep you interested. According and what reference to what you said, Mr. Ben, and according to Jim Miller on Twitter, she's still in her cart and touring.
Yeah.
According to what he said, take that what you will if that's canon or not, but that is what he had mentioned on Twitter about Trixie.
That was what I had thought, because I remember that with the season 6 finale, she was still with her cart, so I figured she was still traveling around, but I just didn't know if she was just stopping by Ponyville more often because of Starlight or anything like that. Or if this was just kind of like a one-time thing, since she was just hanging around because of Starlight's graduation, and she's going to be getting to tour again after the events of this episode.
Mm-hmm. I'm really interested, just story-wise, and this kind of goes on what I said yesterday as well in terms of Starlight. I'm interested to see where Trixie as well is going to go this season, if we're going to get any more episodes with her, because they've kind of sort of added her to the, after being absent for so many seasons, kind of added her to the show's main like secondary character repertoire with Discord and Starlight as well. So it'll be interesting to see where Starlight's going to go in her rest of her episodes this season, how she'll be involved this season. If Sunburst is going to be more involved, Thorax and Trixie, of course, and see exactly what roles, if any, they'll play going forward. I'm assuming this season, even though we didn't have a 2-part opener, I'm assuming we're going to have a big 2-part closer with some event that some things are going to be leading up to. It's kind of interesting to see what that will be, and how that will involve Starlight, Trixie, and the rest of their kind of compadres. Story. So Matt, what you're saying is Granny Smith is the master of disguise.
Well, it certainly isn't frickin' Dana Carvey, that's for sure.
So now I'm imagining Granny Smith saying "Turtle, turtle."
Yeah, no, as the Storm King.
Yeah, oh God. Turtle, turtle. Oh God.
Tankin'.
It's Tortoise.
Yeah, every time she says it, you have Fluttershy just randomly appearing Pinkie Pie style, saying it's Tortoise.
Guess need to edit that scene over and just kind of drag Fluttershy's Fluttershy over the bottom of the screen there to yell "It's Tortoise" every time they say that.
I want to edit that scene from Master of Disguise. Just have it's Tortoise, but from Fluttershy every time he says it.
Oh. Well, let's go ahead. We can move on to the characters and to their characterization here in the episode. And we might as well, there's a lot of side characters, but the episode mainly, for the most part, focuses on Trixie and on Starlight. So, what does everyone think about how the episode handles their relationship, like both of these characters together, in the story?
Well, we can at least understand why Twilight finds Trixie obnoxious.
Yeah. Starlight is slowly realizing that in this episode. And that's kind of thing. Trixie doesn't really, and that's kind of her problem and fault in this episode, is Trixie doesn't really know the limits. There, in the past episode, last season, in, what was it called? No Second Prances. Trixie and Starlight, they both kind of joke about their past misgivings and stuff, but here Trixie just doesn't really know where the line is and has trouble, at least for the beginning of the episode, recognizing that Starlight might not be taking some of the things she's saying very, very lightly as well. And it's just as much Starlight's fault as Starlight admits, because she's not communicating and not expressing those feelings with Trixie. When she doesn't realize that. But yeah, Trixie really comes off as quite the dick in the beginning, just because she just doesn't have that filter, and she thinks that she Starlight's her friend. She's been so forgiving and lovely that she can make all of these jokes and stuff, and she's not gonna hurt Starlight's feelings at all.
I'm probably pulling a lot of this from out of my arse, but with Trixie, we don't really know a lot about her prior to obviously her being a show pony, obviously becoming a show pony in that, or show mare, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, a lot of what she does is on the road, and she's not necessarily interacting with a lot of people. So I'm just wondering, her nomadic lifestyle, that may well affect sort of how much social interaction she has, and that's probably why she's a little bit more socially awkward than I would say even Starlight is, to a certain degree. Starlight has her own issues, of course, but I think they're very different ones to what Trixie has. I think that's a very key thing here is Trixie's, obviously issues around friendship are very different to Starlight's, and then again with Discord, I would say they were different again. And I think that's the key thing here, is because they are so juxtaposed to what to each other in that regard. It's what helps. I think it's what helps make. If anything, it just makes their friendship a little bit more believable, because a lot of people say, "Oh, opposites attract." Well, it may sound corny and kind of blasé, but I think that's there is some merit to that, and I think I like the fact that even despite the flaws that each character has, they still find enough common ground to still let a friendship flourish, and I think that's a very key thing here, because whilst that there is that to a fairly decent degree with the main six, I think the abrasiveness between each other is limited. There is some. I mean, obviously we've seen the abrasiveness between, say, Rarity and Applejack, for example. So it's not like it's not there, but I think it's a lot more strongly focused on, as particularly in this episode with Starlight and Trixie.
Yeah, because they have that younger friendship, and so they haven't kind of glazed past maybe some of the differences they have.
I mean, I'm not saying that season 1 and 2 didn't have those things with the main six. They certainly did. But
no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
It's a lot more. I think it's a lot more the focus, and that's that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I also have to agree with Tim in the chat room here, because you kind of have to realize that, Trixie was probably the one who didn't have a whole lot of this experience as well, because, she was traveling around Equestria largely by herself, never staying in any one place, all that often. I mean, she's constantly moving around, never really happened to stay with very long, and probably put up with the same people for ages on end. So
it's very nomadic.
So yeah, this kind of lifestyle kind of doesn't lend itself well to long-term friendships. So this is something new for her as well. So
and also her occupation sort of leads her to be sort of very self-centered. We see.
But also, she's also putting on a show. She's not necessarily being herself.
Exactly. Yeah.
So exactly, like who is the real Trixie?
Her as well.
Yeah.
Will the real Trick Shadies please stand up?
I was about to say that sounds kind of like a mystery almost.
Come on, please, season 7, Starlight and Trixie rap. Come on, make it happen.
Only if Bulk Biceps can do the chorus in a falsetto voice.
No, man, Bulk Biceps is gonna be doing the beatboxing in the background. Come on, make it happen. We got a Fresh Prince song. Let's make it happen, Pony.
Only if one of the verses gets a guest rap from Discord.
Oh man, I would pay to hear Discord rap.
Well, he kind of had that not singing from that one episode of season 4, so maybe
Blast the Walls here.
Yeah. I suppose a not rap could be just as easily as not singing.
Hey, worked for Vanilla Ice.
Oh snap!
I think this episode also highlights really one of Starlight's problems, one of her faults and issues that she has, that we've seen her have pretty much since her character has been introduced back in season 5, and that's she really has issues with bottling her feelings up. And that's sort of something that we saw with her back in season 5 as well, where she had those feelings of abandonment by Sunburst when he got taken away to school and kind of lost her only friend, and instead of going out there and making new friends or anything like that, she sort of just bottled up all her feelings and all of her anger and became very bitter towards friendship, which led her down the path to kind of doing what she did in terms of taking key marks away in the village and kind of making everyone there all the same and emotionless and not expressing any emotion or feeling. And so we kind of see that again in this episode with her not wanting to express those emotions and wanting to bottle all of those feelings up, although a little bit different this time, with her more wanting to not want to lose another friend like she did in Sunburst. Yeah, and of course we also got to see her, temper problems. On the topic of temper problems, we got to see her when she finally did release all that anger. She released it in the exact same way as she did in the Cutie Map Part 2, when she was yelling at everyone once she was kind of outed as being a fraud. Right down to the same exact, yelling face and the vein kind of popping in her neck there. Which was a nice touch to have her, and even Kelly Sheridan had the same exact voice, yelling voice as her there, for that scene. And Trixie's cheesy, and she'll get along great with Discord then. He loves those cheese puns.
They were fairly Gouda.
This episode was fairly Gouda. Gouda out of 10.
I give it a strong brie out of 10.
That's right. Here at CinemaQuestria, we don't do ratings by numbers. We do it by cheeses.
I give it a double Gloucester with chives out of 10.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we had in terms of Starlight last season, in terms of her sort of replacing, in this series, replacing her, like, Season 1 Twilight, Season 2 Twilight, as the one who's going to be, learning a lot of friendship lessons that really Twilight and her friends can't learn anymore, because of that. And that's a good point in terms of the writing in this episode that I forgot to write down that I want to make, is that the lesson and the moral in this, and pretty much everything that happens in terms of Starlight bottling up her anger and not communicating with Trixie, this isn't a lesson that the show's really done before, and it's not something that the show could easily do now with the main six. It would feel a little out of place for the main six to do something, at least in the same exact way that they did here, with Starlight and Trixie, where they're able to do that here with Trixie, and have this like friendship lesson about being open and not bottling up your anger and being honest with your friends if what they're saying is hurting you, because they can't change and maybe hold back what they're saying and understand that they're hurting you unless you tell them. And that's something that would have been really hard to do as a lesson for any of the main six. So introducing a new main character like Starlight has really allowed them to do stories like this again that they might have not had done, or missed back in the earlier seasons of the show, where it might have made more sense. Yeah, and Tim is, Tim's making the same point at the same time here in the chat about that. And that's sort of why I liked what they were doing with Starlight and how they introduced her last season, or 2 seasons ago, and then where they kind of took her last season, because it does allow her to fill that gap the show has had now for a while. Twilight can't be learning, all these basic lessons about friendship forever. So it made sense to kind of introduce a new character, and it fits so good into the show's lore, as we saw in Celestial Advice, in terms of Starlight becoming Twilight's protege, like Twilight was to Celestia, and seeing similar kind of mirroring like that. I think something else
Luna. You know what would be nice to see? I'd like to see Luna have her own apprentice.
That would be
It
interesting.
would be nice.
That
It
would be
would be-
actually really
yeah.
cool. I would love to see that.
She kind of, but I would love to
she's
see
kind
that.
of done that with the
CMC,
Phillies,
yeah.
the CMC, yeah, but to a degree,
Somewhat,
but
yeah.
it's not the same.
It wasn't like she literally had a protege, but the episodes in terms of what they did kind of still had her teaching some younger, some younger students about stuff and lessons that she had learned in her life. So it was it wasn't directly her having a protege.
We don't know how many she does that via the power of dreams.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, she could very easily. Use the
Luna
dreams
mentors
to be able to-
everyone.
Yeah. Well, the Celestia only chooses.
Fuck you, Celestia.
Hey, Celestia is basically the private school way.
Luna is the public school.
Luna public school.
Oh, nice.
I love it. Oh my
Nice.
god, that's so perfect. and then the public school gets so pissed off at the private school.
Oh, that's great.
Because she doesn't
And
get
that's
it.
why
Because
Luna
she doesn't
gets
get
sent
enough.
to the moon.
She doesn't get enough funding. Oh
That's
my
brilliant.
god. If
I've got to make that a fucking fan fiction now.
if
haven't I?
only they had done that in Equestria Girls and had like had Celeste be the principal of some prissy pot
Actually,
private school.
now that we've said that, that would be so fucking perfect.
You mean Crystal Prep, right?
Yeah, she would have been Crystal Prep, and Luna would have been like the public school, Canterlot High.
Luna doesn't need to charge. It's the perfect public school. She don't need to charge no tuition because she can barge into your dreams and teach you for free.
Yeah, and just like public school teachers, she doesn't get enough credit for all the work she does, or enough pay. It would be interesting to see Starlight take on the CMC, although it's kind of like at this point in the series, the CMC have also kind of grown so much as well. It might be a little too late for them to kind of
I
take
agree.
on that role, I guess. In terms of learning about friendship.
I would love to see. I would love to see the CMC end up having some kind of role sort of similar to what we see from sort of the rest of the main six and Twilight, guiding others, and I think that's more or less where they're sort of near enough at now. I mean, it's not 100%. I mean, they're still quite young, so you're going to probably see some episodes where they grow still. I think. In fact, there is an episode like that happening fairly soon in this season. So,
Spoilers.
but it's also a fact that it's not just the fact that the CMC as characters have grown up, but obviously the voice actors, which they've never changed, which I think is a massive credit, because you want to know a good example of a show where they actually just changed the voice actor just pretty much in the middle of a season just because of voice breaking or whatever?
Gumball?
The Loud House.
Oh.
The Loud House.
I didn't know they did that in Loud House.
Lincoln's voice actor was changed after I think it's something like this 18th or 19th episode.
Really?
Because
I didn't
the
notice.
original VA's voice broke. Yep.
I know they did that. They've done that in Gumball.
They did
at
a
least
really
two
good job
times.
finding a replacement.
Yeah, they must have, because I didn't even notice.
Yeah, no, I've actually watched episodes prior and after, and he sounds virtually identical. So
Amazing. They've just Nickelodeon has just grown another one of their child stars in a pod to make him sound exactly similar.
I don't know how old the replacement was. I mean, they may well have decided to have someone that can sound younger instead.
Yeah. But yeah, it is nice, and the voice all the CMC's voice actors they do a really good job of still mimicking the CMC's voices like how they were. I mean, if you go back and watch the old episode and watch a new episode, you'll notice they're quite a bit deeper, but it's not that huge of a difference. Where if you're just watching the season now, they sound very much like, they don't sound out of character. They still sound like the CMC's.
They sound like themselves.
Yeah,
and that's the great thing. I mean, it certainly helps for, like, say, Apple Bloom with her accent. It certainly is gonna. You're not gonna mistake her for anyone else other than perhaps a sister.
Yeah.
So. But I mean, you hear Scudloo in season 1 and you hear Scudloo in season 6, and you can still tell it's everyone's favorite chicken. So
Chickens' voices don't change that much. But But yeah, I mean, and they kind of done that in terms of what we're talking about and with the CMC. They sort of started doing that last season with the Gabby episode, in terms of them taking on more of a a teacher role, sort of like what their quote unquote destiny with their key marks is now to do.
What would be nice is to see the CMC teach a lesson to, say, the main six or Starlight or something. That would be something quite an interesting thing to see. Some sort of role reversal in that regard.
They kind of did. They sort of kind of did, and
sorta
in
did that
the
with-
cart before the ponies.
Yeah. Sort of.
At least
to a
in
degree.
at least in terms of the episode structure, it was the older sisters that were learning the lesson from the younger sisters there, not the other way. So to a degree. Back to this episode. It was nice seeing Bulk Bulk biceps again, and I'm like, does he have a different job or a second job? And I'm glad they actually sort of referenced his original
Yeah, that
job
was
at
great.
the end, saying, "Oh God, my second job! Don't you work at the spa?" Like,
Ultimately.
whoa, what was that? Matt, can you repeat what you said? It said
Kinda.
Discord had you say everything in like 1 second. It was really weird. Yeah, that's pretty much what it sounded like. You sounded like Trixie.
What I was saying is that the show is incredibly fortunate to be able to keep all of the A's that they've had over the years.
Yeah.
It kind of says that, how great it must be to work on the show, and B, just how incredibly fortunate that they've been able to have the VAs, available to them, at the points that they've needed them.
Yeah, and to bring back, your minor characters like Trixie and give them much bigger, and Kathleen Barr, and give them much bigger parts.
Michael Dobson was back for Bulk in this episode.
Yeah.
It's just things like that. I mean, he was basically a joke character that appeared in one episode of season 2, and yet he's come back every time.
And like Kelly Sheridan and stuff just loves working on the show now as Starlight is pretty much a fairly regular character now.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, Kathleen Barr, who obviously actually voiced characters in G3, this was her first ever. I think this was her first episode where she actually got top billing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Trixie's
even
dream
over
come-
Starlight, which surprised me in this episode.
Trixie's
Well, to be
dream
fair,
come true. Trixie's dream come true. She finally gets top bill.
I know, right?
Her name was up in lights.
Or at least on the screen. But yeah, I mean, it's great for them, and it's great having these characters, especially like Trixie from season 1 of the show, come back and be sort of take a 3-season break and come back for an episode, and then another 3 seasons and came back season 6, but now sort of being a sort of regular character on the show and really fit into the story and Starlight's story and kind of what they're trying to tell here, not just bringing her back because Seth is obsessed with her or something, but actually bring her and actually really integrate her into the show really well, which is really
Can
cool.
we like put that to bed? It's I know Seth is he runs one of the most popular fan sites in this fandom, but I if anyone says that's got anything to do with how I honestly think that you're basically doing the writers of this show a disservice in saying, oh, it's pandering. It's like, well, you could say about that a lot of things. The only episode that you can legitimately say that it's pandering, and that's because hell, they kind of fucking knew it was pandering, is the 100th episode. That's it.
That was
All the
supposed to
other
be pandering.
episodes- Yeah, exactly.
It was
That
intentional.
was the whole point of
Yeah.
the that
They
was the
even
whole point of
referenced
the
it with the
episode.
fucking panda bear.
And jumping over a shark.
Yeah, that too. They knew what they were doing there. But yeah, I mean, it's just like when you actually look back, and if you're gonna have Starlight make a friend in the series, really, if you're gonna use an existing character and not just try and create some random new character for her to become friends with, it made sense to have her first kind of new friend besides like Sunburst be Trixie. It's just there's so much they can relate to each other so very much because of their pasts, both as being sort of antagonists and their pasts with Twilight and the main six.
The only other person I can think of that it could have worked with perhaps is Gilda.
Yeah, and I think Trixie would be the better option there over Gilda as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they didn't choose the right option.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Another option that could have been Gilda.
Yeah. And so it just makes, to me, it just kind of makes sense that they would have showed.
Would Gilda have been the Gouda option?
No.
Griffins don't like cheese.
Well, she probably doesn't like cheese puns anyway.
But yeah, I mean, and regardless if they even brought back Trixie in last season in No Second Prances as pandering, which I don't think they did, they have still done a fantastic job over last season in this episode, integrating her into the cast, the secondary cast, and integrating her and her friendship with Starlight. I mean, regardless if she was originally added back in as pandering, you can't deny that they've done such a fantastic job of building her friendship with Starlight, and they, including this episode. And that's one of my favorite things about this episode. It was just so great seeing Trixie and Starlight kind of interact again, because I really liked seeing it in No Second Prances, and this was like No Second Prances 2 here, and it was great. It was also really cool in this episode, in terms of Trixie, to see her magical powers actually improving thanks to Starlight teaching her. I mean, talking about, Starlight taking on a protege, she kind of is with Trixie in a lot of ways here. And, and seeing her help Trixie actually do actual magic spells versus just kind of the show stage magic that she has been doing her whole life was really cool, and kind of seeing Starlight as an apprentice already sort of becoming a teacher to her. I mean, that's not Starlight. I mean, Trixie was actually able to do a teleportation spell. Maybe not on what she was trying to do it on, but she did do it. which is pretty, pretty good for Starlight.
Every time teleportation happens, I think what should actually happen is they play the Act Clear song from the Japanese soundtrack of Sonic CD.
Every time.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence about this. Don't get me wrong, I like seeing Trixie being able to do some more impressive stuff with her magic. But Trixie turning out to have a large amount of latent magical power that she just simply needs the right training to use seems to be kind of more of a common fan idea than, and I'm not really sure about seeing the show kind of indulgent on this. I'm not really complaining that much. I'm just kind of, interested to see where they're gonna take this.
I mean, it's just kind of Starlight, maybe just giving her some lessons on stuff. It's not sort of buffing up Trixie's, making her some sort of magical prodigy like Starlight is. It's just sort of Starlight really trying to focus her magic and help her do some spells. And the spells that she's teaching her are trying to, spells that she's trying to think, that she thinks are going to help her act as well.
But to say, I do also kind of remember I was like joking back when we were watching the episode that, so does this mean that Starlight's going to take Trixie on as her personal protege? And I'm like thinking, nah, that can't be, because Starlight and Trixie are kind of more of are really much more closer in age, and well, I don't know, Starlight and Twilight seem to be kind of close in age, and
I think Starlight might be. I think Starlight is older than Twilight. I mean, of course, this is all purely speculation, but
speculation.
To me, I really think Starlight and Sunburst are older than Twilight. At least that's the feeling I've always gotten since season 5.
Well, disregard the age gap then. It just seems to me that
I don't think the age gap is that much either way.
See, either way, I don't really see the possibility of Trixie deliberately apprenticing herself to Starlight.
I don't see it happening in the same way as like Twilight and Starlight do. because I mean, Twilight is mentoring Starlight in so many
No.
ways, and friendship, and helping her, understand and use her great magical ability that she has. With Trixie, it's not going to be so much that. It's going to be more Trixie or Starlight mentoring Trixie in the way specifically of friendship and learning, and teaching what she's learned from Twilight, and being and being her friend, and also just kind of being her friend and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not going to be the same kind of deal. I mean, I mean, the show never really goes into it, Tim. So a lot of it is just really kind of speculation on kind of what magic is. We know that all unicorns can use magic in some way. I mean, even Trixie uses magic for her for her show. It's not anything breathtaking. A lot of it's just kind of stage magic, making fireworks and stuff. But she can do magic. Twilight's special, and Starlight too is special because of their very great magical ability. And their ability, and not just ability, but willingness to go and study and learn a bunch of different magic spells that they can use. So they have both the willingness to study and the ability. And I kind of contrast that with like Sunburst, where Sunburst has the willingness to study, but he really didn't have the ability there. And before, Starlight had the ability, but didn't really have the willingness to study, which is kind of how they got along so well as kids. So, like, Starlight and Twilight are able to kind of really commit to studying all of these spells and learn a lot, where a lot of other unicorns, I think, can still learn spells, but they don't know a lot other than maybe spells that help them with their job, either because they don't have the time or willingness to commit to studying those spells and perfecting them, or they even have the magical ability to do some of, the more advanced spells, like teleportation and stuff. And even Trixie here is really struggling with that because she didn't, the spell kind of went haywire and, of course, teleported the map and not, and not the apple. Thankfully not Spike. That's a good point, Radio Doug. I didn't notice that, but yeah, she was naked the entire episode.
Oh my.
Oh my.
I'm sure Spike wouldn't have minded. He probably enjoys a good hoof-a-cure at the spa.
What?
But as you were mentioned about the magical abilities of unicorns, and that, I mean, a good example of that is Rarity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of her, she has a lot of magical ability, but it's almost all related to her fashion and her fashion enterprise and her creativity. Whereas it's not necessarily things that are more sort of things like teleportation or just general magic things that that the likes of Starlight and Twilight would.
And I think that has a lot to do with kind of what her willingness to learn is. She's willing to really commit to learning all these spells that are going to help her in, in what she's interested in and her line of work there.
But I mean, it's obviously also a factor of time, whereas Rarity's time is spent up a lot of time making dresses and stuff, whereas she hasn't got the time to learn other magical spells because A, she doesn't need to, and B, that
she's just not interested in
away
it.
from her. Yeah, well, there's that too. But also, it'd be time taken away from her making her basically doing that. Does make me wonder what sort of magical spells that Sweetie Belle will specialise in eventually.
Auto tune.
Oh God!
I can't.
Don't we have ponies for that anyway?
Yeah, we did have the auto tune spell pony back in season 5. It looked like Prince.
I was going to say more Lady Gaga, but
Well, I mean, the pony that was using the auto tune spell in that episode looked like Prince.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah. So he was the pony formerly known as Pony.
Well, Trixie was kind of
He
off the
just
jump.
goes by a symbol now.
Yeah. And Rarity, though, this kind of goes into kind of her character in this episode as well. Where this episode is really the first episode, other than like the finale, where we really see her kind of off the job. I mean, even in No Second Prances, we see her, she's in Ponyville doing this apology tour thing, so she's obviously in her whole getup. But here she's just hanging out with Starlight as friends on a day off, not doing any work. So it's kind of, fitting that she's not wearing her, show hat and cape and everything. She's, just there with Starlight, baking some stuff naked. Like everyone does on their weekends, right?
Thank you for that mental image.
Oh, boy.
I'm naked right now.
on this
I'm not really.
on this glorious show, we're all naked.
We're all equal here.
I'm just standing here in front of my window naked, talking into a microphone. No one knows what I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't know what I'm doing while I'm talking here.
Do we really want to know?
Yeah, that's probably a fairer question.
Yeah, and Clutch brings up a good point, and I don't know how much they actually invent. I think they might invent spells, but I do think spell invention is probably something that's reserved more for people who are a little bit more like Twilight. I don't think that's something that most unicorns have the ability to really, or the time to really do, I guess. I mean, even Rarity, she knows a lot of spells that help her, but they're not, a lot of her spells aren't necessarily specifically for, like, dressmaking. I mean, she knows how to levitate stuff and how to use magic to, like, hold needles and stuff, but none of those spells are really specifically
She knows how to find gemstones, for example, though, as well.
Yeah. But that's kind of
which could be used for things other than just collecting them.
Yeah.
To be used for fashion.
How did she? Is that the spell? Did she just kind of sort of? I'm trying to remember Cutie Mark Chronicles, because isn't that when because she had the part of Cutie Mark Chronicles where her horn just kind of glows and like leads her to that giant rock that's full of the gems, and it just kind of drags her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
she just learned that that was sort of her talent, basically, was to find gemstones. Because don't forget, her cutie mark is actually gemstones. So I reckon that's her actual talent is actually finding gemstones, but her ability is more fashion related.
So yeah.
This is the interest. I mean, we could have a whole bloody discussion about the cutie marks and the actual ramifications of them.
And it's kind of like
because some are based around what they're good at, and some are based around sort of more specific talents. It's kind of odd. There's no one specific thing when it comes to cutie marks.
Well, it reminds me of Trouble Shoes from that one episode where he had that upside down cutie mark, and he thought that his talent was just simply having rotten luck, but then it turns out that no, he's actually really skilled as a rodeo clown. So that's kind of the similar issue with Rarity here, where like you mentioned, her actual talent could simply just be as like a living gemstone locator, but she's really, really good at making dresses, kind of as a career.
Rarity's like a truffle pig, but with gems.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'd love me calling her that.
Hey, Rarity, you're a pig.
You're a gem pig. Get back to finding gems, pig.
Oink, oink.
Spider Rarity does whatever a Spider Rarity does. Can she swing from a web? No, she's not.
She's a fucking pony.
Look out, it's Spider Rarity.
No, she not. She doesn't like spiders.
But yeah, I think with Rarity, it's kind of also a different thing, because we were talking about people inventing spells and people learning spells that other ponies, I should be using ponies have invented. But with Rarity, it's kind of another example of like a third kind, where she just inherently has this magical ability to find from a young filly to find gemstones. It's not something we see her learning. It's just something that her horn starts glowing and drags her to the rock, and she doesn't know why it's dragging her to this rock. But then of course the rainbow happens and the rock explodes. Yeah. And she's found gems, so now she's was able to kind of harness that ability and actually use it on command now, I guess.
Can you imagine how awkward it would be if your magical ability as a unicorn in the pony universe would be to find pony porn?
No.
God.
I don't know if I really want to get into that.
Oh God.
Could you imagine how difficult it would be for that unicorn whenever they go on the internet?
There's no pony internet. But it would be it would be pretty bad because you'd constantly be attracted to like underneath everyone's mattresses.
And considering that Fluttershy is a model, that would be very awkward. I mean, was a model. Sorry, was.
Spike, why do you have all these magazines under your bed?
Oh. Hoping that Rarity one day poses for one.
But we're always naked, Spike.
You know, I actually remember a joke where there was like early on in the fandom, like there was kind of like a reverse strippers club thing going on in some of the seedier parts of town, where instead of taking them off, they just put them on instead. Oh.
So does that make Rarity the sexiest pony in Ponyville then? Because she's the only one that really wears clothes.
I guess.
Well, apart from Applejack, because she always has her hat on, but you know.
Getting back to All Bottled Up.
Yes, please.
I really did like the final scene just from a character standpoint, and just getting to see how close Starlight and Trixie really have grown over this past season, however long it's been in Showtime. But it just, seeing how well, they can get together, and finally when Starlight lets all this out and lets Trixie know how she's feeling, how Trixie is so, nice and, quick to forgive her and, and apologetic and really kind of speaks to just everything that she really loves about, starts to tell Starlight everything she really loves about her and why they're friends. That, I love you for all of these things, for your faults and all. And it's a really good moment between the two of them, really emotional, just as an emotional moment as what we had in Celestial Advice, and really well pulled off.
I love the I don't have the quote here exactly. I think Rain might have it somewhere, that when Trixie says to Starlight about all the sort of quirks about her, and that's why she absolutely does love her as a friend. As a friend.
They're just friends, just like Bon Bon and Lyra. Remember, just friends.
But yeah, I just love that line. Basically, sort of sums up exactly, both the flaws and the reason why I will probably, till the end of when this show ends and this fandom becomes, just a small fragment of what it once was, it will always baffle me why so many people were turned off by Starlight having her reformation and that, because honestly, as a reform pony, I think she's been one of the most interesting characters to actually sort of see as to grow and evolve. And that
it's kind of like one of those things where it's like they don't really think things forward, where I get kind of where they're coming from in terms of Starlight was a really interesting kind of compelling villain, and like her episode in season 5 premiere and finale were really, really good and really, really cool, and one of the coolest villains I think that we've had in the show. And they also have this kind of thing in their head that somehow, even though it's really not true, all the villains of the show have been reformed or something like that. So here comes another villain reformation, when really we have a lot of villains that were just straight up defeated. Tyrek,
but
Nightmare Moon.
I think some were confusing villains in this show for just antagonists.
That too, yeah. That too, yeah.
Like Gilda and Silver Spoon and
people who are never really evil or anything like that either. It's just.
But, I mean, the only characters I can think of in this show that were outright evil are T-Rex
Chrysalis,
and
Who's still at large.
and Sombra.
and Sombra, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course,
Yeah,
they kind of
then that's it.
they kind of lampshaded all this in the season 6 finale, where Starlight offers forgiveness and reformation to Chrysalis, and Chrysalis just like, fuck that shit, and flies away. So pretty much just like saying, no, we're not going to reform all the villains in the show or anything like that. But
And
really,
the only other one we can perhaps surmise might be is the Storm King.
Mhm.
But that's making an assumption of
that's
you know,
making a
before
lot
we
of
actually see it.
assumptions. But I mean,
But you know, it's not like the show has heavily had a huge like rogues gallery of what I would call villains.
Yeah.
It's not that sort of show. It never has been.
it's about a show about friendship, not about,
Yeah.
not friendship.
I mean, if you want to see a show with lots and lots of villains, go and watch a superhero cartoon. There's plenty of them.
And I've made this point here already, and I'll make it again really quickly. In terms of Starlight, I really enjoyed Starlight as a villain too, and part of me did want to see more episodes with her in season 5 as a villain. But the problem is, where do you really go from there? I mean, she was a really compelling villain in the premiere and finale, but if she just comes back pissed at Twilight again and trying to do something again, you get into a state where the show's you're getting repetitive with the same villain coming back and doing the same things, and even if they're kind of a good villain, it just gets repetitive. Is it more compelling story-wise to have the same multiple episodes the next season of Starlight coming back and trying to do something to Twilight in the main 6 and ruin their friendship that is somehow going to top what happened in season 6, which the season 5 finale, which it's not? Or is it more compelling to have Twilight kind of get to her and kind of see the error of her ways and start reforming her, and then having this arc for her going forward of her learning and changing and growing as a character, rather than just staying angry and bitter and being just a villain and that's it. And it provides more humanity to her and makes her seem more real. And that's why I never really understood it. Yeah, I liked her as a villain too, and I mean, I wouldn't have said no to another episode as her a villain, but it's more compelling for the show and for the show's overall story to have her like this. And then we get episodes like this.
It's ironic that the ones that I see complain the most about Starlight's reformation always seem to be the ones that are the most bitter or the most abrasive. It's always funny. I always find that really amusing. It's like, basically, you've learnt nothing from the show then. Yeah, really, and I'm not saying that you can't dislike the fact that she was reformed. I mean, fine. I mean, a lot of people still dislike that Twilight was, ascended. So I've always complimented this show for having the guts to actually change things up, or to move into a different gear than people may have necessarily expected or felt they even needed. And I think you don't last 7 seasons without at least taking some risks, and some of them may not necessarily work and some of them will work, and I think more of them have worked in this show than have not. And with Starlight, I think they made a gutsy move, and I think in episodes like this, I think it was well worth it. I mean, would we, for example, would we have seen as much character growth and interaction with any other characters for Trixie if it weren't for Starlight? And
this is one of the things that I saw some of the crew that works on Equestria Girls say when they got a question about why did you kind of reform Sunset Shimmer, and kind of make her sort of the main character there, and even after kind of all of the hate or that they got, or why do you keep doing stuff with Flash Sentry and stuff? Because it's a challenge, and they said because it's a challenge for them writing wise, and a good challenge for them, and it helps creatively to try and do something with a character and make that character likable and make that character change and develop. And to not stagnate, and I'm sure the crew that works on MLP, feels the same way about this, just creative wise, rather than just just writing a straight up villain. trying to do something maybe a more challenging, create, maybe make people like a character that they didn't like originally.
I mean, a common thread I found with Starlight's reformation was that they're just trying to do the same thing with her that they did with Sunset in Equestria Girls. Trying to repeat the success just in the show instead of living in Equestria Girls. It's like maybe, but they're such different characters that their reformation arcs are very different. So I don't see it myself. I mean, you can make. From a surface level, yeah, you can say, they're trying to repeat the same trick, but really and truthfully, I would say that Sunset is sort of more entered into sort of like the Twilight role in Equestria Girls, whereas and you could say the same. You could say, Starlight's now kind of like a young Twilight, and I suppose to a degree, yes. But they're still their own characters. You can still, you wouldn't say that Starlight is a carbon copy of Sunset. Not even close. I mean, they're very, very different characters. I feel.
Yeah. And another point that I saw Tim make in chat regarding Trixie, and this is just another reason why I think she was the kind of the perfect character to put in this role last season, and not just something that's there as just a fan shout out or pandering or something like that, is that Trixie, of course, came back in season 3 and was sort of kind of reformed there. I mean, you can kind of argue how much reformed she is, because she obviously turned into the great and humble Trixie and walked away, kind of that. And they kind of left it as that. It was a good episode, but it kind of left you wanting more with Trixie, because you kind of left her in a place where, she's sort of learned a lesson, but is she really reformed? Is she changed? And so here we are bringing her back as sort of Starlight's friend and sort of pseudo apprentice in terms of friendship. And we're getting that full turn for her. She's getting that what Starlight got in terms of more development and more character building and more change in her character that we kind of just left on the floor after her appearance in season 3, and which is another great reason for her to be back in this episode. And this is kind of going back a ways here, but this is the quote that Matt was talking about, that Trixie says at the end, which is, I guess, I really loved this quote, and it was a really kind of emotional moment for both the characters, where Trixie says, "Listen, I take that boring pony you were... I would take that over the boring pony you were becoming any day. The Starlight I love is passionate, lively, and yes, sometimes angry. Those are my favorite parts of you. That and the fact that you forgive me every time." I mean, that's such a great emotional line and kind of tongue-in-cheek funny line, at the end there. And it really just shows just how good of a friends that they've become, even with their differences. And sort of, Starlight has her faults and Trixie has her faults, but they kind of, they love each other for them, and they have a lot of stuff in common that they can relate together. See you, J.E. Thanks for stick around for most of it.
Take care, J.E.
Yeah, and of course that line totally isn't going to spark a ton of shipping. No, not at all. But it was a really cute line, and kind of the embrace after it was great.
My love triangle between Starlight, Fluttershy, and Big Mac is ruined.
No, I want. It's gonna be the love triangle between Starlight, Twilight, and Trixie as Twilight becomes more and more jealous.
Wouldn't she become more and more happy that she doesn't have to see as much Trixie?
But also less and less Starlight. That's the triangle point there.
Trixie loves 2 things. Well, actually, no, 3 things: Celestia, books, books.
You mean Twilight?
Celestia.
You mean Twilight?
Yeah.
Okay, he said Trixie.
Yeah, Twilight.
I was gonna say Trixie loves 3. Trixie loves 3 things: Trixie, and Starlight, and Trixie.
But definitely Trixie. But with Twilight, it's in this order: it's books, Spike, Celestia, although it's very close between Spike and Celestia, but Books is always number one.
It's really close between having it being Books and Books and Spike, and just being Books and more Books.
To say, if Fluttershy wants to be a tree, then Twilight probably wants to be a book.
And books are made from trees, so
she wants to be Fluttershy.
Okay, there we go. Canon. No, she wants to be Fluttershy, but ground up into a pulp.
And made useful.
Oh.
That's a bit harsh.
Ouch! Ouch! Did you just say Fluttershy is not useful? Wow, I was not expecting that to come from you. Totally useless.
Of all people.
Fluttershy is crying in the corner now.
How can she cry if she's a tree?
Sap.
Yeah, that is a bit sappy, isn't it?
Womp womp.
Yes, I'm sure Twilight has some
you do
great
realize we've
50
already
Shades
been
of Grey
talking
books.
about the story. We're an hour and a half into this episode.
No, we talked about this. We talked about the story and the characters. We just got
Yeah,
we're about done.
we haven't talked about things like humor or anything yet.
I know. We got time. Anything else for characters or character development? I think we've hit all the points I had written down.
Who knew that Granny Smith was such a player?
Oh gosh.
To be honest, I think outside of everything else, I just loved like the little interactions with just sort of those sort of secondary characters in the sort of the background characters with this. I love that the background characters are getting more than just like the odd, sort of background wink.
Yeah.
If that's any kind of legacy that the 100th episode gives, is that we actually get to see a bit more of the background characters and actually have some spoken lines and interactions with them, then I think that's all the better for making the world feel more fleshed out.
Yeah. Okay, well let's go ahead and we'll go on to the
again.
Well, speaking, we'll go on to the voice acting. Is there anything that stuck out for voice acting in this episode that anyone wants to put out? We did mention already that Kathleen Barr's Trixie actually got top billing in this episode, even over Starlight, which was a first.
She really did a very good job. Just that that sort of that squealing kind of at the beginning of the episode when she's like finally getting that teacup spell down. Teacup.
Kathleen Barr just had way too much fun with this show.
Everyone has way too much fun with this show. What are you talking about?
She's able to pull off Trixie's sort of slightly dickish, like pompous attitude so well. Like when she's making some of those snarky comments towards Starlight throughout it. They're so great.
Picture Mr. Ben's posted. No, I'm just imagining her as Benny now.
To say even. Kelly Sheridan has Starlight. Like when she was getting like really tired, you can actually tell in her delivery that she was just weak and just really drained.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think that she used to play someone so plastic and stilted as Barbie.
I mean, on that aspect, not just when she was drained, but when she actually was able to let kind of that anger out and yelling again. It was really great to hear that kind of really angry Starlight again that we heard back from the season 5 premiere, and that really over the top angry tone that she can get when she snaps.
That return to that quiet face too, as well, especially when she was like losing her shit over Trixie.
Uh-huh.
I still love how Bulk was great in this as well. Michael Dobson was like, "Oh, by the way, you're gonna have to play Bulk again." Yeah, sure, fine, go for it.
Can I just say, my favorite part was the "I wear many hats" line, because he said we're used to hearing Bulk being really big and bombastic, and when he says that line, he was really very kind of a little more timid. I wear many hats. It was
of course he does. Of course, he wears many hats. He has trouble putting them on with his tiny little spindly legs, but you know, he does wear many hats.
Yeah, and Riley Murdoch was a new voice for the show. It's one of her real first roles, actually, at least according to IMDb.
If Bolt Biceps, if he actually went through the portal to the Equestria Girls, I wonder if he'd just turn out to be a T-Rex. But I mean, we actually had a one of the characters. I can't remember. It's one of the more incidental characters, but we actually had a brand new voice actor.
Well, yeah, that's what we were just talking about a second ago. Yeah, right. Radio Doc had mentioned it in the chat there.
Yeah, right. Riley Murdoch. I did an IMDb search on her and found almost nothing.
See, well, we can kind of go on and talk about the humor in the episode. So we get a bit of humor here right from the beginning there with the teacups.
Yeah. I love how the episode also went on to kind of play that into a bit of a break joke there, because Trixie just goes a little overexcited, just turning everything into teacups, and then later on we see Spike just washing just an entire mountain of them things.
I think Spike, for the little role he had here, was had some great hilarious moments with Trixie when she's like, yeah, Spike, we can try it on Spike, and he's like, excuse me. And then of course when she's getting Spike's ready to do the spell, Spike's like, yeah, I'm just gonna move over there, and he goes like all the way into the other room at the very back. So yeah, good move, Spike.
Speaking of stuff that we actually see once again is that Trixie's final transfiguration thing actually creates a teacup dog hybrid, that little poodle teacup thing. And it runs off early on, but then like about halfway through the episode, we see it again briefly while they're looking for the map. Then, of course, we've got Trixie kind of being somewhat self-centered. She's got said like, yay, Trixie, you're so great at magic and having good hair. And then she's like standing behind Starlight, like lifting her forelegs up, and Starlight just got that most annoyed expression. By the way, didn't you retweet something where there was like that screenshot of Twilight, or not Twilight, Trixie behind Starlight, kind of juxtaposed with a scene from Titanic or something like that?
Oh yeah. There's a lot there at the beginning of the episode where the part that's really the really funny part where Trixie's like, yay, because she's like, yay, Trixie's so amazing, yay, and she kind of goes behind Starlight and lifts her arms up, and it kind of, if you freeze frame it there, it looks like the I'm the King of the World scene from Titanic.
Once again, I just love this particular issue with the episode calling out something and then like returning to it later. When Trixie and Starlight are seeing Twilight and her friends off where they're going to head out to Manhattan, they even kind of mention off to each other like, yeah, if we know Twilight, they're probably gonna break into song or something at some point in the episode, and they actually do that.
Yep. Just to lampshade that.
Even better, with the gang's tendency to break them into the song actually cost them that escape room record.
Yeah, I like how they kind of break the fourth wall there. And of course, at the end of the episode where they're like, yeah, we learned a lot about team building and problem solving and when not to sing songs.
Do you wonder if the Griffin team was led by Gabby?
No.
Maybe. I don't know.
That had the previous record.
No. Could be. I really like the line, Trixie's line at the beginning there is like, well, we can do this because we're amazing and magic is friendship and stuff. Again, another like little pseudo kind of fourth wall break. Yeah, of course it's Pinky. Of course it's Pinky making the fourth wall break there.
Trixie's just kind of, being Trixie. I mean, yeah, she's kind of back to her usual narcissistic and braggish self. A lot of people kind of think that Trixie was just being, relatively more obnoxious than usual, but I'm like, that's just Trixie being Trixie. She's just, getting sidetracked by the thought of getting cinnamon nuts and, being kind of self-centered and, kind of just going around and getting stuff done, for her own selfish reasons, thinking that it'll probably be enough to jog her memory.
Yeah, and like we discussed before, she's really new to this whole friendship thing, and even just new to interacting with ponies one-on-one, since she's she's always just been on her own touring, so she doesn't really know where the boundaries are in terms of things.
And then on top of that, I mean, it's kind of like as if karma's coming back to pay her a visit. It's like all that stuff just kind of blowing up on her in the end, where like Starlight's anger magic just kind of affecting those three ponies, and they're just taking it all out on Trixie, and she's running around screaming, "Help me, Starlight!" And then it just kind of immediately just juxtaposing right back to the Twilight and all her friends having all that great time.
Speaking of voice acting, I loved Kathleen Barr screaming nuts when it cuts back to her that one time when Bulk Biceps is throwing the nut card at her. Nuts!
It's the nut cart. It's the nut cart.
That should have been the music they played over the credits.
Oh,
And also Trixie's line when she finally starts noticing that and that's one thing I forgot to mention. Forgot to mention that I really liked how, although Trixie is very oblivious, of course, at the beginning of the episode, as Starlight becomes a lot more and more disheveled, she starts to, you see her start to notice that, and to the point where she finally kind of, asks her about it. And it was a nice little thing of her actually showing concern for Starlight as she starts to look more and more disheveled. And I just really liked her line, you seem a little black, or whatever the fuck she says there. Just like, you seem a little black.
It also looked kind of like Starlight seemed to age significantly too, but then again, it was probably more like along the lines of the
she just looked
got under her
tired.
eyes. Yeah, just really looked super tired. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the line that Trixie's when Trixie was going behind Starlight and raised her arms up and stuff. She's like, "Yay, Trixie, you're so great at magic and having good hair." It's like such a classic Trixie line there.
I think Rarity would disagree. I think her main is probably better.
Of course, Rarity would disagree. Excuse me? Objection!
I just love the idea that Spike's just, while this is all going on, is just reading his comics.
Yeah. He got comics to catch up on.
Oh god, could you imagine Starlight and Trixie as characters in Power Ponies? Oh god.
Geez, who would they even? I don't even want to know who.
Well, Starlight's could be something related to emotion. So perhaps she'd probably make a good Green Lantern actually, but that's obviously been taken by Rarity. So
yeah.
She'd be the yellow lanterns, right? That's the other ones.
Sinestro?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So Starlight would be the yellow lanterns.
What would Trixie be? Back up for one of them breaks a leg.
She'd be freaking Mumbo from Teen Titans.
Hey, as long as it's not from Teen Titans.
Anything else for humor?
Let's see what we got here. The fact that the spa just apparently thought nothing of one of the most powerful and important magical items in Equestria just suddenly appearing in their lobby. They just started using it as a massage table.
It was Bulk started using it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh. Twilight comes back. Why is there all this oil all over the map? Starlight, what have you been doing?
Stop. Trixie did it.
We were having a friendship lesson with oil.
We were having a friendship lesson. It was being taught to us by Bonbon and Lyra.
Oh God. Friendship lesson. Let's see, animation and visual wise, Mr. Ben mentioned this earlier. Just, I loved how Starlight started looking more and more kind of disheveled as the episode went on, and her hair started, being very unkempt and kind of drooping down, and got the big, bags under her eyes, and just noticeably tired in the way that she was, holding herself up and being a lot closer to the ground. That was a really nice touch. I really liked her mane.
Did you indeed, sweetie Belle?
Yes. Of course, I mentioned Starlight's yelling face, complete with the that vein popping under it, just like in the season 5 premiere. And I really liked the storyboarding during the song. It was a lot more kind of a lot of it was a lot more abstract. In it, sort of like we had like the Babseed song. And I liked like the transitions between like the different seasons as they were kind of running across. It was really nice, and the animation really synced really well to the music, with all the characters kind of bouncing in time with the music. Like Pinkie Pie's bouncing was really fun to watch there. And the singing fireworks where Twilight launches the fireworks up into the sky, and has all the main 6 of them kind of, as the fireworks singing up there was really cool.
Baby, they are fireworks.
Just cut the song right there and just splice over JonTron's version of fireworks. I did see some people kind of that were kind of disappointed that the B plot, the what's it called, the escape room didn't take place in like a new location. And I really do hope that we see some new locations in Equestria and outside of Equestria this season. But I'm glad it wasn't in this episode, because there was only a couple shots outside. So it really would have been a waste to waste that little thing on some new location when most of it took place inside the escape room. Yeah, there's the fireworks there, yeah. That was really cool, because their mouths kind of moved, but it's animated in such a way where it isn't like really like fluid. It kind of just like you would expect if somehow fireworks could do that. I like how the glowing of it too. It looks really nice. It'd be a good wallpaper. Oh yeah, the red anger cloud over Starlight. Yeah, I haven't really had time to go back and look, but I saw some people commenting that some of the magic animation, like in Celestial Advice and stuff, looked like it was new, like a newer style as well. But I haven't really got a chance to go back and check.
Yeah, I really didn't much on that. But I do have to admit, I really did like how the red anger flowing from Starlight's horn seemed very fluid, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Just really well done.
It's almost like a pensive, like in Harry Potter. Oh yeah, I guess. Oh yeah. Cause some of these screenshots from the song. I just really love the song in terms of just the storyboarding of it. I love, like, there's all the seasons. I still always laugh whenever I see fucking Rainbow Dash in those ridiculously large sunglasses, where they don't even go behind her ears. It's just something about it. It just seems so funny. And then of course we have a little bit of all of them in their winter attire there. It's nice to see Rainbow Dash have the same outfit that she had in Tanks for the Memories there. Fluttershy is the only one that's completely naked throughout all of them. Poor, she's not that cold in the wintertime there.
Maybe she's just used to the cold.
Well, she's a tray.
She just sheds her... So that means she sheds her hair in the winter?
But then that would mean that she's just bald during that time of the year.
Yeah. She wears a wig. Yeah, they got Rarity dancing on top of the gemstones there, and those cartoony little checklists that Twilight's checking off which of her friends she's killed, and she's coming after Fluttershy next, it looks like. I love that. I love when they put the little drawings, like, from the storyboards in there. And we see, like, in Simple Ways, we saw it when Spike was kind of presenting Rarity's ideas for how the dresses and how the whole event was going to look. And you kind of see it here in this episode. Or, like, in Too Many Pinkie Pies, when Pinkie's, like, showing all the characters. And you have, like, the drawings, like, pulled directly from the storyboard. So they look a little, more cartoony and stuff. I always like when they throw those in. Or the pictures. A good example would be the pictures from Celestial Advice as well. Okay, well, since we've been going on for a while here, I guess let's go ahead and let's get to the song itself. Song, music, and numbers. So, Best Friends Until the End of Time. Very long song name. I don't want to listen to the remix album again. Let me get back up to there we go, new season. So our first two episodes in here then, and we already have our first song of the season of what appears to be 5 songs. So already off there. I really like, regardless of, it's in place or out of place for the episode, the song itself was really good. It's really catchy. I've been singing it like all weekend and all this week so far. I have to catch myself not singing it. I really like the verses of it, sort of the, like, the whole, like, how they, like in the first verse when, like, Twilight's like repeating the last two words, like cheesy or easy, and stuff like that. It has a really nice sort of feel to it in terms of the beat of the song there. And I really like the echoes during the chorus at the end of each of the lines there. For it, it has a really nice feeling. I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, this is too Equestria Girls and stuff. It's too poppy." And not really. I don't really think it's that poppy. We've had more poppy kind of songs in the show, like Make a Wish and stuff like that. But one of the things that they always do with the show songs that helps them stand out from, like, the Equestria Girl songs, which are, can be... Equestria Girl songs are very straight rock or pop a lot of times, or folk in the terms of the last movie. But here, even if the song is a little more rocky or a little more poppy, it's the instrumentation that always ties it back to the show. So in Best Friends Till the End of Time here, you get, of course, a lot of acoustic guitar. You get a lot of mandolin in it as well, especially in the second verse. And that's kind of like the mandolin and, like, the ukulele and stuff like that are some of the instruments that really tie songs to this show. You also get a lot of, like, the electrical sound, like for Pinkie Pie as well from the earlier seasons, but really into the later seasons here, we always hear a lot of mandolin. No matter kind of what maybe the genre of the song is closer to. It's that mandolin sound that ties the songs back to this show and makes it seem like a pony song versus just some pop song you'd hear on the radio, like you can say like a lot of the Equestria Girls songs are. Yeah, that picture of AJ. So I mean, I really like it. I don't think it feels out of place in terms of the style, in terms of the show's songs. And definitely, I mean, there's been a lot, like I said, a lot of other songs that are a lot more poppy than this one. This one has a very kind of classic MLP song feel to it. So we'll go ahead and we can I'll go ahead and play the instrumental. I guess you can hear that the acoustic guitar earlier on. It has a little bit of electric guitar in it as well. As we get to the second verse, it adds in that mandolin on top of it. And I just really like the beat and overall, it's so catchy. Let me, okay, just get it queued up here for everyone. Okay, here we go. Oops, if I can hear it. You can hear a little bit of acoustic guitar right there at the beginning. You get the electric guitar there in the left stereo channel. Very deliberate beat too. Adding a little strings in on top as well. It has that very deliberate bouncy beat to it. More prominent strings here in the chorus. Okay, so now we should have more mandolin coming here in the second verse here. Got the little interlude there. Here's the second verse. Got a little bit of electric, kind of like electric keyboard in the back as well. As well as some piano there. I don't know, it was really catchy song there for it. Yeah, it's nice hearing. It's nice hearing a really good song to kind of start off the season here. Any other comments on this song? And now we'll just move on to the score. And the main six always sing really well together as well. They always have some great kind of harmonies to their vocals. Just pull up some of the score stuff here. And I can't stress enough just how much I love how the visuals really tie and match up with the song as well. Just did a really good job with that. It's really fun to just watch it with the visuals as well. Okay, so okay, we'll move on to the score. So not as much, we got the song in this episode, not as much in the score department, both because of the song and because it's a little more character focused, doesn't have those kind of bigger score heavy scenes and emotional scenes, as many of them as Celestial Advice had. Celestial Advice had a few kind of a little bit more faster paced action scenes, but also had a lot more emotional scenes in it as well for the score to kind of shine through. This was a little bit more character, so not quite as much, but it does have a few different things in it that are worth pointing out. We'll start off with close to the beginning of the episode here, after the cold opener. One of the things that, of course, returned in this episode was Trixie's leitmotif. She has this accordion number that you should recognize, because this is one of the motifs that has been with the series since the very beginning, since her episode back in season 1. So it's one of the older ones in the series, and so it's nice to hear that continuing to come back for her, and that kind of accordion sort of style coming back for her as well in her tracks. So we'll hear that here in this track when they're trying to do the teleport spell. Here it is. There. I like this part here too at the end of the track. Okay, so this next one here is a really short one. This is when the main six are first getting into the escape room there. Very short one, but it's kind of something to point out. To point out here, because it's a track that we heard a very shorter version of last season. It's a little bit longer here. It's at the end of the second DJ Pone 3 song from Saddle Road Review, when Pinky kind of interrupts it with that elevator music. This is the elevator music here that she interrupts it with. It's a little bit longer in this episode. From there, we get to the scenes where Trixie is really starting to get on Starlight's nerves and being very, unintentionally very dickish to her. And these scenes are backed with this really, really fun, tango music for it, which somehow really fits sort of the nature of how Trixie's acting. And I really, really enjoy it. And from there, we'll skip a little bit farther ahead to the end of the episode after the song here, starting with the track "Coping with Anger," and this is right when Starlight admits the truth to Trixie in terms of coming out with her anger and stuff. So the beginning has this cue that has a very Tetris-y kind of cue. We heard this cue previously in the track "Out of Reach" from last season's "The Fault in Our Cutie Marks." So it's a little another appearance of that cue here. From there, the score becomes a lot more emotional as, of course, kind of Trixie and Starlight both kind of finally have that communication line between them after Starlight vents her anger. And it has a kind of an alternative version of a cue we heard last season in No Second Prances, actually, their previous kind of introductory episode there, and this one was heard in the track "The Magician's Assistant" in that episode. So a nice little another musical callback to the episode where both of them met. And there's that cue from No Second Prances here. And you'll notice that it uses some accordion in the instrumentation, again, working in Trixie's instrumentation into that track. From there, we get to the final track of it. The final emotional track here is Strong Friendship, after Trixie and Starlight have reconciled. So it begins with a very kind of sad piano and guitar cue, which we heard back in Season 5's Hearthbreakers, and the track Worst Hearth Swarming Ever there, which transitions into a new piece of score that kind of builds upon the theme in the melody in that track there. After that, Starlight and Trixie enter the spa, which then the score transitions into the new spa motif, which made its first appearance in No Second Prances, of course, when in the scene where Starlight and Trixie first met there. So continuing that spa music and the callback to No Second Prances here. I really like this track. Very emotional track here for the scene.
You're kidding me. There's more to it than that. I was thinking about how glad I am to meet you. And I remembered our first meeting here at the Ponyville Spa. And now I just have to tell you. Let's just say
Then we end with one of the series' lesson motifs here. Okay, and that's the end for the score for it. So yeah, a little bit lighter, but it has some nice emotional pieces there at the end, and of course has the song in there as well. So, oops. So let's go ahead. We'll move to the next part of discussion here. What does everyone think of the episode's theme and moral?
Do I really have to say it at this point?
Go ahead.
Okay, as per usual, don't be a dick!
Yeah, come on, Trixie. She pretty much is like the epitome of that in this episode here. Yep, it's you know, the moral here is all about kind of again comparing new friendships to seasoned friendships, and of course how important communication is between friends, both, you know, especially about communicating your feelings, or if a friend is, you know, maybe makes you feel uncomfortable or is hurting your feelings, it's important to let them know that, because, you know, as much as Trixie probably should have been more perceptive of that, she's new to this and she had no idea that what she was saying was really hurting Trixie, or hurting Starlight. So yeah, you should be perceptive of your friend's feelings, but as a friend, if someone is hurting your feelings, it's important to let them know, and and forgive them.
You also shouldn't suppress your anger, especially if a friend is doing something that's seriously bothering you, because otherwise the anger is just going to even be worse when it finally does come out. It's better to confront the issue and head it off.
Yep.
Also, you can't solve every problem with magic, so, you know.
But no, they didn't learn that lesson.
No.
Because they'd never have fun if we learned that lesson.
Exactly.
I loved that line. Yeah, and it's interesting because that's really the whole not bottling your anger up, and having that good communication with friends if they're hurting. It's not something. I don't think that's really a lesson that the show's done before. Surprisingly, about bottling your anger. I can't really remember an episode at the top of my head where we've really dealt with that sort of friendship issue and moral head on like we did here. So it's nice that they were able to, and like we said earlier, without this whole Starlight being the way she is in the series, we wouldn't have had that opportunity to have that lesson, because it would have been kind of a weird lesson to have Twilight and her friends learn at this point in the show. Mm-hmm. So, favorite parts and any final concerns that anyone wants to air about the episode?
Don't really actually have a whole lot of favorite parts in this one. The whole episode was just good on this one. I guess probably if I had to say there was a favorite part, probably just Trixie apparently yelling nuts when she's running away from the cart before it crushes her. And then like when they just point out, Bulk was like, don't you work at the spa? And he's like, I wait for my second job. What? I wear many hats. Bulk Bites his place, Team Fortress 2.
Bulk Bite, he is Gaben.
Yeah.
I don't really. I mean, I guess I don't know if there's a specific thing I can really point as a favorite part. I just really loved all the interaction between Starlight and Trixie throughout the episode. It was really enjoyable, really real, and I'm just really happy we got to see another episode that really pretty much just focused on them as friends, just not saving the world or anything like that, but just kind of having a day together as friends and sort of the challenges that they come across in that. I guess it was really good to have that episode and have that so soon. And it's a good episode. It was a good episode to have paired with Celestial Advice, and sort of graduating, sort of Starlight from Twilight's there. Yeah, the song was great. I mean, the song is definitely one of my favorite parts in terms of the song. I did like how it was also kind of used as a joke there with them with that fourth wall break of the song, which songs usually don't take place in world, and so they kind of play with that and kind of play with the fourth wall there to kind of make it be the reason why they lost the record, which is pretty funny. Yep, and of course, we have the main six there. I think I still stand by my point that having the main six there to juxtapose and kind of contrast with Starlight's relationship was an important part of the episode. I will echo Matt's point that you could have had that not there and the episode will still work. I think the episode was better because of it, but if you removed that Spee story and just had Starlight and Trixie, the episode still would have worked well, and it was nice having them being able to stand as their own, as secondary characters in the episode with their own story. I'll totally echo Tim's point on that there. Okay, well, with that, any overall feelings and final thoughts, final conclusions here before we end it off? We're actually going to probably go on a little longer than Celestial Advice, which I was not expecting. we had a big discussion in the middle there that kind of got off track, but it was a fun discussion to have. Any final thoughts then from everyone? Yeah, it was kind of cool. It was kind of interesting because the A and B plot isn't something this series really does a lot. The really first big A and B plot episode we had that I can think of would have been the season 6 premiere, which, of course, had that big A and B plot that came together, between Flurry Heart and the rest of the main six and Everthem, and then, of course, Trixie and Sunburst, and how those A and B plots came together in the end. It's not something the show really does a lot of. Usually it kind of sticks to one story and goes with it. So it was interesting to see it done again here. But yeah, I like this episode a lot myself. I thought it was really good. It was again really awesome to see more Starlight and Trixie and sort of their friendship progressing and growing and continuing to learn and grow as characters. It's nice seeing them, especially Trixie, getting additional screen time on here from being pretty much a one-off antagonist for an episode to being a very important part of one of the secondary characters, Starlight's life here. It was nice built upon that on the first episode. I think definitely having Joanne and Christine write this episode and the previous one, even though they're not part 1 and part 2, helped the episodes kind of flow together in some ways a lot better. I think I still enjoyed Celestial Advice more just simply because of what it covered. But that's kind of an unfair comparison because it's more based on what it did rather than what this episode didn't do. Because this episode was really good, really enjoyable. And I'm really looking forward to what Joanne and Christine are going to bring as story editors this season. They've really shown throughout all of the episodes they've written a really, really good understanding of the characters. And these 2 episodes have also shown that as well. And have also shown that they have a really good understanding about the show's lore and continuity and being able to bring past events to move stories forward and use them as reasons to tell new stories rather than just some, just having all the episodes sort of just being because they're doing it because they actually have a lot of reasons and motivation. So I'm really interested to see what they bring this season. And we'll get to see that starting off this weekend and seeing what more stuff we have to bring as we continue through season 7 here. You have anything final to say, Mr. Ben? I think it's just you and me.
Really.
I think Matt's gone to bed by land.
Yeah.
It's actually, he's actually dropped from the call. Okay.
Yeah. But no, I've pretty much said all I've need, or all I've had to on this.
Okay.
I don't really have anything else to say. So.
So yep, that's it. So thank you all so much. It's been a great discussion here. I've always had a really great discussion today on everything and some other topics unrelated to the episode. But it's been really fun talking about this 2 times this week. So yeah, we'll be back next Tuesday, of course. Normal time, normal day at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Might be a little late that day because I'll be working, but it'll be just around 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for a flurry of emotions here. I'll kind of turn around and look at my computer that has the website up for our countdown. Flurry of emotions. So I think we can make some assumptions as to what that episode's going to involve, or a certain character. So I'm definitely interested to see how they use that certain character in this episode coming up, since we haven't really seen them other than a short brief cameo in the finale for it. So be interesting to see where they kind of take that character and where Joe and Christine does it. This episode actually does have 2 new writers that are writing for it. Joe and Christine have actually gone on, announced the writers on Twitter, which is great. I'm glad that they're taking some, just like Haber does in terms of being active on Twitter with what's going on with the show. So I forget their names, but they have written for a few things before, but the most notable one is that the both of them were, or at least are, maybe still are, staff writers for The Loud House. So speaking of Trixie, we're kind of going full circle here with the writers of the show being the writer of Ghostbusters, and of course Trixie went on to of course create The Loud House, and now some writers from that show are coming back. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring, and of course, just like last season had a ton of new writers, it looks like we're going to continue to get new writers on the show this season. So it's going to be interesting to see what new ideas and what new things they bring to the show, and how Joanne and Christine are able to guide us through.
The episode's writers for this upcoming episode is Sammy Crowley and Whitney Weta.
Yeah. So yeah, they were both staff writers for the Loud House there. So if I know I and a lot of other people here really like the Loud House, so I'm really excited to kind of see what they bring to this episode, which looks like it's also going to deal with some sibling issues for it. So yeah, it looks to be a lighter episode, but I'm with the characters involved, and of course I know one of Twilight's Magic's comments from last season was that he wanted to see more Twilight involvement in normal slice of life kind of episodes versus the two-parter episodes. And of course we had a lot of Starlight involvement in the two-parter episodes, and I think the first episode of the season, Celestial Advice, really fit that bill as well, with that being not really a big two-parter but very character-centered episode with her and Celestia. And this episode coming up looks like it's also going to involve Twilight as well, and a little bit more of a slice of life fun kind of role episode to star in. So definitely interesting to see kind of how Twilight's role in that's going to be as well, and get another episode, another kind of fun episode starring Twilight. Yep, of course. It's important to mention, shouldn't judge writers based on their past, necessarily their past works, good or bad, because there's been plenty of writers on this show that have come from shows that I think many, including myself, might not, find that good or that interesting to us, but they've done some fantastic work for this show. So a lot of it is not just the writers, but you got to take into account what they're given to write about. So I know a lot of people had some reservations about like Nick Confalone when he first come on, but he's written some of my favorite episodes last season, so I guess we're going to make that clear, because I know I'm saying that they're really good on the Loud House, but we'll see. We'll see how it is this weekend. So that episode, of course, is going to be this weekend at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We hope you'll stop on by here at CinemaQuestria and live chat along with us during that episode. Another quick announcement is that we maybe have a This Week in Pony episode coming this Monday. Kind of see if a few things kind of start to line up for that. I'm not, both personally and for just news-wise, because there has been a few things that have come out that are ripe for kind of discussion over the past couple of weeks that we've been kind of putting off, just because there hasn't been a ton to discuss. So keep an eye out on our on the show page, on our website, our calendar, and of course on Twitter. And when we decide if we're going to be having that or not later this week, we'll let you know. And then of course next week at Tuesday at 5 p.m. we'll have our Triple E episode for A Flurry of Emotions. So yeah, that's pretty much all we got for today. So thank you all so much for joining us for Triple E today, and we'll see you next week. So bye bye.
Later, folks. See ya.